Hello everyone, I'm Alfian and today we are going to solve the Hackerrank warm-up for the algorithm challenge called the Minimax sum. And then for this challenge, it describes given 5 positive integers of the array, and then we find the sum of the minimum and the maximum values that can be calculated by summing exactly 4 of the 5 integers. That means, in short, we are eliminating 1 from the array. So for the minimum, we are going to eliminate the highest value, which is 9, and then for this array, if we want to find the maximum sum of the array, then we are going to eliminate the lowest value inside the array. So without further ado, let's solve this by using the simple solution. We are storing the minimum value first inside the array, and then we don't have to worry because we are going to iterate the array. So for the min and max, we are using the first element of the array, and then we are calculating the total value inside the array, total integer value, and then we are using the traditional for loop for this one, and then we are iterating the number or elements inside the array using the for of array takes the parameter, and then using the plus and equal sign to calculate in place with the current iteration of num. And then as we go between iteration, then the minimum value, we are using the math min, and then for the first parameter we are passing the current minimum value inside the first element of the array as the initial value, and then for the current iteration compare both the minimum and then the current iteration to see which one of them is considered the lowest or the minus or the minimum value using the built-in function called math.min. And then for the max value, you guess it, we are using the max to find and then or to compare the maximum value to see if the current maximum value is higher or lower than the current iteration. And then we are using let declaration because this variable going to be mutable, so we are, in this case, we are not using the constant. And then since this is a void, we are not returning anything other than using the console.log and then find the minimum value, which is we are eliminating the max from the total sum minus the max value, and then the sum, and then find the max value. We are ditching the minimum value inside the array minimum. And then let's run this to see if it works. I am going to show you the other solution. This is the simple and traditional one. If you want to use the more advanced function, we can harness the function called the spread operator, or with the max and min value, and then we are finding the minimum using the math minimum, and then spreading the value of the array, and then for the cons max Also, we are spreading the array inside the Minimax. This spreading function means like we are going to place it like this, like 1 and then comma and then 3 and then 5 and then 7, like that. We are spreading the value as the parameter of the max.min or max.max array, just like that. And then for the sum, we can use the let sum as usual, and then we are going to use the array dot reduce that takes the accumulator and then the current iteration as both parameter, and then using the usual accumulator plus the current value, and then the initial value will be 0. We can, since it's a reduce function, we can use constant here, and then the total value of when the reduce function is completed, and it's going to be stored once and not going to be mutable every time the reduce function is run. So let's not return but console.log, console.log, and then summing the max to find the minimum value, and then summing minus the minimum to find the max value. Let's run this, see if it also works. And I have one more solution in mind. We can, instead of using the constant minimum or constant maximum or storing anything, we can just use one constant called the result. You can name anything else other than result, is okay, using the array and then reduce with the reduce again, and then take the accumulator as the current iteration. And then for this one, we are not implicitly return with the accumulator plus current like we did from those earlier videos on my channel, and then instead we are using the explicit return using the return function, return statement. And then for the initial value, we are going to take an object and then call the sum for the sum property, and then for the initial value, you guess it, it's 0. And then for the minimum, we also use the initial value from the array parameter, and then we are using the first element of the array, which is array 0. And then for the max value, we are also using the array 0. And then maybe you might be thinking this is complicated and everything, but trust me, it's better than you think. And then the console.log, and then we are going to console.log later. For now, we are going to use the accumulator with the property of sum that we declared here at the end of the reduce function with the curly braces or curly brackets, because it's considered an object declaration. And then for the sum plus equal using the current iteration, and then for the accumulator property of minimum, we are using the math minimum inside the reduce array, it's okay. And we are using the accumulator minimum and then compare it with the current iteration to see which one is the lower than another, is the lowest than another. Also for the max, we can use the max using the accumulator and then max, and then the current iteration. You might be thinking why we are using the accumulator.max inside the accumulator.max, or we are going to compare both of the accumulator.max or accumulator.min. It's because the accumulator.max declaration and then this math.max will be executed later after this, which one is higher first in this one. So we are using the max value and then store it right here, and then compare it with the current iteration, and then if turn out this accumulator.max is higher, then it will be stored inside the max, and then we can run this, and you don't have to worry about the value stacking to one another, or if you're confused and then we got an error, no fraud matches equal and blah blah blah, something like it. We forgot to use the return the accumulator since we are using the explicit return function here. If it's explicit return, then we use the return statement. If it's implicit, then we don't have to use the return, and then we just use the plus sign or everything like we did in the earlier videos. So let's run this. This one, the accumulator will be stored inside the res as the result, and then the rest will take the sum property and minimum property and also the max property. And then for the console log, we forgot to use the rest dot sum. We find the minimum value first, or the minimum sum, with the rest dot min max, and then for the second console.log, we are using the rest.sum and then rest.min. Takes the property. Let's run this to see if it works. Okay, so that's about it. I hope you understand these explanations from me and other solutions. If you have any other solutions, you can write in the comment sections, and if you have any questions, you can reach me out in the comment section, or anything from the earlier video if you want a reference. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you on the next video. Goodbye.